Hi there. I don't even know what day it is, or at this point, almost even what month it is. Uh, it's kind of crazy. I guess it is April 16th. It is a Thursday, and we're back for our Agile for Alls bi-weekly live stream. We've been doing daily doses, but a little bit more doing this and been doing this for a while. So my name is Tricia Broderick. I'm with Agile for All, and I am getting to choose whatever I want to kind of talk about, maybe rant about, maybe share about, whatever kind of comes up. And so one of the things that I've been doing I was doing for a couple of weeks were these free Q&A sessions, just a way to kind of give back, pay it forward a little bit to the community as we're all dealing with chaos and uncertainty right now. And a common question I keep asking is, okay, we've bought into this in person and how much more effective it is, and collaboration and engagement and all of these dynamics. What do I do now that it's going online? So it's not as hard. I mean, it's not as enjoyable, certainly not as enjoyable for me, but it is still doable in a virtual setting. You don't have to just sit here and talk at a screen at people for 2 hours and hope they're listening. And so I'm gonna take a concept that's been it has gained traction for quite some time now in the Agile community, and actually take one of the techniques and talk about how you can do it virtually. So let's first talk about what the concept is, and it's called Liberating Structures. I have to make sure I'm going to look at the names. I've got a little cheat sheet of paper here to make sure I don't get their names wrong. Keith McCandless and Henry Lipmanwicz. I don't know actually how to say his last name correctly, so sorry. They actually started creating this back in 2001, 2002, based on their website, liberatingstructures.com. We'll probably put that in the comments at some point. And their history that they have out there is that they've been working on this since early 2000s. They believe they published a book in 2014 from best that I could tell. And the earliest, I tried to Google search within Agile and who was talking about this a little bit first. And the earliest I could find was actually 2015. It was about using Triz, one of the liberating structures that is on their website, in a retrospective. And what they did. It was a blog post written in 2015. I think I first heard about it from Heidi Hefland, probably more in 2000, I don't know, 17, 18, but especially in the last year, 2019 especially, it was kind of everything. You just heard people, liberating structure. And I will own this right off the bat. I was like, okay, it's just another facilitation technique. What's the big deal? And I had to do some research in order to really kind of understand. Yes, it is a way to facilitate and tools to use within facilitation, but it came out in a slightly different way, and it came up in a way that it wasn't just a tool that relies on the facilitator to implement the tool to promote engagement, to promote collaboration, to promote people working together. What I've experienced in doing them and what I've experienced in talking with other people is actually you're, as a leader, not just as a pure facilitator, but as a leader who's using facilitation, the structures, the tools, the things that they have listed actually help people learn how to have those kinds of engagements and conversations, that you can't just jump into a complex conversation, that you may need to create kind of an environment, and you're actually teaching people how to do those things so that in some ways as a facilitator, I'm not as needed. Now sure, you could argue that they might do that with a different type of facilitation technique, but these techniques are very specific to not just promoting engagement, but actually learning why you need that engagement and how to do that engagement, regardless of however you call it. So I've become a fan. I've become a fan of many of them, and starting using them, incorporating them. I still use techniques from other places, including improv to the Facilitation Association. themselves. But I have found benefits from these. So we're going to focus on one. If you go to the website, I think the range has kind of grown. I think it was always over 30, but I think they're up to 35 now. I'm pretty sure the last time I looked at the website that's out there. And the one I'm going to focus in on is, in some ways, in many ways it seems obvious. In other ways, it's super easy to do virtually. In other ways, but Tricia is just changing up who's talking to who. But I've watched it have such a good impact. And so it's called 1, 2, 4, all. And I'm actually going to highlight, well, here, let me switch over here and see if I've got a definition of 1, 2, 4, all. You can immediately, so how they kind of word it is, you can immediately include everyone regardless of how large the group is. And so when you're dealing with really large groups, when you're dealing with really large people and you're like, well, we can't possibly have them do anything because there's too many people, 1, 2, 4 is actually a technique that you can use, and not just to force discussion, not just to make people talk or have an icebreaker, but to actually get some good results. And my favorite use of this, my favorite result of this in a lot of ways, was actually in Agile 2019. Chris Lee, I had asked to be my facilitator for a stalwart session, and essentially what that is you had Agile experts, whatever, thought leaders, different, whatever people want to call it, people that have been around for a while, where anybody can ask them any question they want. And this track at that conference has been going on for quite some time. I believe Mitch Lacey was one of the creators of this, probably in like 2013, 14. So it's been around for some time. And I've had the pleasure of being one of the facilitators multiple times over those years for different people, from Ron Jeffries and Chet to Ahmed Sidki, I don't know, multiple different people. And there were always some struggles with this, right? Because it's a session, and we limited that session still to, I think it's like 100, 150 people. But, you know, you would have one person get up on the stage to start asking a question to the speaker, and the question would be 10 minutes long, very specific to their organization, and everybody else in the room is like, I'm out, like, I don't care, right? And so it was always a really tricky thing as a facilitator. You want people to ask their question, but how you get them to kind of be succinct and slightly generalized with the question so that it can pertain to more people in the room, that's engaging, that's there, that's trying to listen in to this conversation and these Q&As. And so I was telling Chris about this. I don't know if he had facilitated a session before this or not. I don't think he had. But I was telling Chris that's one of the biggest challenges is keeping the energy and the flow in the room and helping people to see, you know, to relate it to everybody else in the room so that the speaker isn't just dealing with one very specific topic or an organization or a person. And so I was telling him that, and then he's going to do his thing. Facilitation, there's no doubt Chris is going to bring the energy, right? Like, between the two of us, I knew there was going to be no issues there, right? And so he decided to do 1, 2, 4, all. And so when he started up the room, was completely different than how I had done it. I, in the previous years, had walked around and tried to like seed it with a few people to show examples, tried to communicate people as they were coming into the room as to what was going to happen and how it was going to be. He didn't do any of that, or at least not that I'm aware of. He's kicked it off and was like, okay, think of what your question is. He had paper for everybody. Everybody had to write down their question. And just because of the time length he gave, people started realizing how long that they couldn't articulate their question. And that was already, I was watching people realize, oh, wait, I what is my question? What do I have to do? And then that's your one. So your two is you then pair it with somebody else. You go and you get in pairs, and he had everybody get in pairs, and his prompt, I can't remember the exact wording he used, but his prompt was something along the lines of, share your question. Is there a trend? Is there a pattern? Is there something in common that might make an even better question? So he wasn't just saying, which question do you like better? He wasn't just saying, just share your question. There was an element of share them and then build on them, collaborate on them, look for a bigger, better question than what you may have even come in walking and thinking. And so that's the two. So you got your individual, and then you got your pair, and then he did groups of 4. So he prompted with the same thing. What better question is out there? What better dynamic is in there? What else is possible in terms of what we could ask and explore with Tricia today? And out of that, the 1, 2, 4, people had their stuff. He stopped the exercise specifically, and then we did introductions, and then we went. And so not only did the room kick off with a ton of energy right off the bat, 2, the room had connections between the audience in terms of understanding what questions people were all bringing to the table. 3, now they were collaborating together to come up with different questions that were going to apply to multiple people. And when we kicked off, I mean, in a lot of ways people would be like, but Tricia, was your answers, it was the people in the room, and all of that's somewhat true. But I really do believe that approach to starting really helped everybody get a sense of what was possible in this session, what could be based on questions and based on the collective wisdom in the room. And so that was my, okay, I got it. Like again, it was a facilitation technique, and it did promote a collaboration and engagement, and yet also it helped get a bigger picture of what we really wanted in the room. It wasn't just, hey, we got engagement, people were talking. It was people understood and learned what we were really trying to do, what was really important, what was really the goal, and they were doing it together. And so I am really liking these techniques specifically from that perspective, that it's not relying on the facilitator, it is just truly a structure to help people learn about how they want to behave, how they want to be, what they want to bring to the table. So I'm a big fan. And I've always done individual work, I've always done pairing work, but I've never really done the 1, 2, 4 with that in mind. You know, there are variations that are out there. So as people are asking, well, how do we do this virtually? Tricia, we're not in the rooms, right? So different tools are out there, different groups are out there. I'm going to focus a little bit first on Zoom. For people that are like, but Zoom's got all these security things. Couple things, just to address that for a second. One, you can create a waiting room in Zoom, so you can see and omit who's coming into your Zooms. 2, you can also use a password. 3, don't publish your link on LinkedIn or on Twitter. And 4, for me, a lot of when I am sharing in Zoom, if somebody were, aside from the bombing and putting something inappropriate, which you can also change who can share screens and what files they can share in the chat, okay? I don't have anything super sensitive to where I'm concerned with that. So we're going to use Zoom as this example, okay? In most of these video conferencing tools, I can't say all, and I don't actually know, okay? But in Zoom, there's a feature called a breakout room. And in that breakout room, what you're able to do is you can pre-assign, you can assign, or you can just allow random in different size groups. So if I have 40 people in a room, I can still do random breakouts of pairs and just say random, group them in 2, start the breakouts, give them a timer, send them off, let them have that discussion, bring them back to the main one, say the next instruction for 4, change the assignments of the breakout rooms to 4. Again, I can go random, sign it off, they go off, they have that discussion, Your timer should be longer because 4 people need to talk and engage and collaborate, okay? And then bring them back. A lot of people get a little nervous about the breakout rooms of, well, people aren't going to like that. It feels disjointed and stuff. Couple things. One, there is an ability to ask for help in a breakout room and the host. 2, the host can send messages and broadcast messages to multiple breakout rooms. So if you have a new instruction, you don't have to bring them all the way back in their pair or in their group of 4. You can send that instruction and broadcast it into each breakout room. 3, you do have to think about your timing and the length. It can be really frustrating if they're just talking. If you're in person, you can kind of see the energy levels, you can kind of know. In Zoom, the host can kind of peek into different rooms. They know you're actually joining the room, so peek is probably the wrong word to use. But you can go into those rooms, you can join them to kind of see what the conversations are. Personally, I don't do that a ton because I feel it is more disruptive to all of a sudden, like, it's not like I can just walk by. Now I'm like, Tricia has joined the room. It's a little more disruptive to the conversation than what they may have just been doing. So in some cases, just trust them to have the conversations. And that can be a little scary, especially if you're facilitating, depending on what you're facilitating with. But Tricia, what if they don't have the conversation? Okay. What are you doing when you come back? For Chris in that session that we did, if they ended up not creating a new question and one of them just went, nope, I'm just here to listen, I don't want to engage in this, it was still okay. So think about when you bring them back after the 1, after the 2, after the 4, when you bring them back in, if you're going to have them share out or maybe put it in chat, or you have some way of communicating what those things are going to be, tell them up front that there's going to be an expectation of that. Hey, we want you to come back out of your groups of 4. Before you send them to the breakout room, we want you to come back from that group of 4 with your top question or your top idea or whatever the content is that you're using for the 1, 2, 4 all. And because the all part is necessary too, otherwise it is just over there. And so when you come back for the all, it's then kind of engaging and doing those things. Now you can use other tools to have people put sticky notes up. You can put it in chat. You could just shout it out depending on how many people in your room. I would not recommend that for a very large group. But you could also go, and one of your tasks in your breakout rooms when you're in the 4 is one person's going to volunteer to share out with all when we come back. So you're setting that expectation. If you do that, chances are they're going to engage. I mean, unless you're talking about a topic that nobody really cares about. And in that case, you got a whole different set of problems. When Chris did this in the session, the questions were so good. They were succinct, they were dead on, they were just the right level of detail, but yet generalized. And they were constant. Like, there was just nonstop. There wasn't any waiting because they had spent that time talking through it, but also in some cases testing their idea a little bit. Maybe they did bring in a question, but they thought nobody else is going to have that, and I don't want to ask it because I'm going to look ridiculous. And so in doing the 1, 2, 4, it made them really comfortable to do it and share it in the all. And these are the dynamics that are coming in that are really essential for a facilitator, regardless if you're in person or if you're virtual. And virtual in some ways is even more important to be thinking about how you're engaging, how you're doing this, what you're talking about, how people can make the connection. And if you've got, even in Zoom where you have the gallery view up in the right-hand corner where you can see multiple faces, which is lovely, by the way. It's an amazing feature. I also learned the feature that you can turn off 2 things. One, you can turn off people so it doesn't just show a black screen if they don't have their video up. So sometimes I can make at least the faces a little bit bigger. If, let's say, I have 10 people in the meeting and 2 of them don't have their video on, I only can show 8, and it will say at the top 2 participants, no video. The other thing I recently learned, and some people really like this, I don't like looking at myself, especially when I'm talking and no, I can't see anybody talking back to me. It's super uncomfortable. In Zoom, you can actually hide your own video. So everybody else can see your video, but what you're looking at in the screen doesn't include you. It's a really nice feature, especially for those of us that are like, oh, wait, what? Oh, look at that gray, that gray's coming in. Ooh. And so just turn that video off. Don't even notice it, right? But as you're going in there with the video, it is important to go, how am I engaging? And if there's 24 people on a screen, it's a lot of people, and it can make it really easy for people to kind of fall behind, not engage. Who's the loudest? Who's the extrovert that's just super happy to have 24 people engaged on a screen, right? And like, woo, and I can talk and I can. That's what I'm feeling. So having those breakout rooms might feel a little like forced as a facilitator and going, ugh, they're not getting to choose who they get to talk to. I'm kind of forcing it. But it's making it more also comfortable to engage, because not all eyes are on you. For the exact same reason you do pairing, or you do these breakout or these table discussions when you're in person, it's just as important to do it in virtual. Because too many people all at one time is just a lot. It's information overload, it's sensory overload. And so, I highly encourage using those kinds of features, those breakout features. Ways to get around it is you could set up multiple rooms, multiple Zoom sessions, and have them click on different links. I don't recommend that in general. That's a lot of switching. If people don't have multiple monitors at home and different setups that they might have, you get lost in it. It's hard to get people back. So, I mean, it's there. It's an option. You can do those kinds of things. I would recommend using the tool within, just because you have a way to still connect with people, right? And in a way that you might not lose people if they go off, and how do you still, as the instructor, or as the facilitator, as the leader, be able to access them. So there are other workarounds, but I am enjoying the breakout feature. I even, sometimes in happy hours and friendly meetings, we do them a little bit, just so you can have a little bit slight personal conversation, just like you would in a meeting where you might talk to just the neighbor sitting next to you for a minute and not the entire group. So 1, 2, 4 all, big fan. Variations, people are like, can I do 1, 2, 6? I mean, I'm not sure what the originating authors would say. Personally, get the spirit. If you end up going 1, 2, 4, 8 because of the size of your group, and you want to go another round with it, test it and then let me know how it goes. I'd be curious and to see. But the main point is just to keep trying. There are ways to do it virtually. I'm confident you can figure that out as well. And it's probably more important in some ways than even in person right now, because we're all a little video conference, just staring at a screen, staring at the camera, staring at your computer. And we need some variation and ways to better engage. So with that, I'm going to pause as we enter our last 5 minutes and see if we've got any questions with that. So I'm pulling my phone as I have to do with this, and I'm actually doing it over the loudspeakers, which is why I had to double check and make sure, because I didn't want to have just my earplugs in, and then I, which everybody's experienced, or at least most people, whether it's the dog, whether it's a kid, a significant other, it's like, what could happen? And so far, I'm 4 minutes away from being clear, and in the clear with this, so we'll see if it lasts. Okay, here we got one from this other platform. There are a number of them out there. I think I've got the website up. Let me look real quick. I think it says 35 that are out there. They have little cards with instructions that are on that website. They talk about the purpose of them, how to use them with it. I do have some favorites in here. Sometimes they're just variation of the things that I was doing, but they've leveled them up better. Just leveled them up. They're better with the additional bits of information that were in these liberating structures. So I'm going to keep kind of highlighting. I've been highlighting some in my blog of Lead to the Edge in terms of how I'm making some of these virtual and what I do with that. We have the links in the comments here. And but there are other ones out there. Probably one of my other favorite ones, and maybe this will be the next topic, we'll see, is Triz. And so we'll kind of leave it. I'll leave it there. Let you go do the research with it and see. But probably my other favorite one, one of my other favorite ones, is Triz, that I've gotten a lot out of as well. So we will talk about those as we go forward. And thanks. Hopefully you're learning new techniques, and we will go from there. So be safe. Take care. Until next time.